Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to introduce Suman. He's an engineer leading other engineers who are defining, designing, and developing autonomous vehicles. There is a constant thought in our heads on the ethical component of this inevitable future. He's going to have, what is he? No. I'm just going to let you talk. Please give him a warm welcome.
Good afternoon, and thanks for giving me this opportunity. This is the second time that I have been in front of you, and I thoroughly enjoyed the first time. If some of you remember, I had brought a scale model of a semi-truck, and I talked briefly about radar systems and camera systems. That's basically what I do on a daily basis. It's very technical and it's very engineering based. But today I want to talk to you about ethics. Ethics is a subject that is not usually related or directly talked when engineers talk, but it is very important that we understand this topic and in fact dwell over it a little bit. So today I would request you to participate. I want you to ask questions and I want you to engage in this because I alone don't have the message. Together we may have a message. So let's start with a story. I'm going to play a short video and then we will talk about it. There is a trolley car that is approaching, and there are some construction workers, and this trolley car is going to run over these construction workers. There's nothing you can do about it, but there is also a lever in this, you can see. And if you're able to pull the lever, you can redirect the trolley car, and instead of hitting 4 people, you could hit 1. So that's basically the situation here. So I hope you understand what we're talking about. There's a trolley car. You can't control the trolley car's speed. There are no brakes. There are no drivers. It's going to careen down this track. And these construction workers, there's no way of you alerting them. They are wearing ear muffs, and you can't really ask them to get out of the way in time. But you're an observer. What would you do? Would you just watch it careen through the track and hurt or kill these 4 people? Or are you going to pull the lever and redirect the trolley car away from the 4, but direct it towards that 1 person? Can we have a show of hands? How many of you would not do anything? Like, be about 10. And how many of you would pull the lever and let the trolley car go and kill that 1 person instead? So there seems to be more people at least inclining towards pulling the lever. From those who said they would just observe and not do anything, can anyone give your thought? Why would you not do anything? Can you? So that is the logical explanation, but let's assume that there's no way of them knowing. Would that change your mind? Anybody else who would not do anything? Is there one more thought that we can hear? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, if that 1 person was Barack Obama, you would much rather kill the other 4 people.
So that is interesting. So there is 1 person who's choosing the quality of an individual to making a decision. So you're going to have an interesting time after this talk, but that is one thing. Let's assume that he's not Barack Obama, or we don't know anything about this person. Anybody else to whom this person means nothing more than a human? Why would you not do anything? You have the power to act. You have the power to save 4 people, right? But you choose not to do anything. Okay, any volunteer who chose to pull the lever and direct the train towards that 1. Is there anyone who wants to give your thought? Why would you do that? Yeah?
The total production merit of those 4 people is more.
So there is this concept of the 4 people can contribute more towards this society. So there is greater good for greater number of people. Therefore, you would choose to go for the lesser of the two evil, maybe, because, hurting anybody is not a good idea. But the logic there is 4 people could contribute better to all of us, so we would rather choose lesser of two evils. Maybe that is your thought? I think those who raise the hand for the second option probably align with him. Is that value? Okay. So let's have that in mind. So what we say is lesser of two evils, we'd like to do that. Okay. Let's make a small twist to this tale. There is a slightly different scenario now. So once again, a trolley car is currently down. The same 4 people. They're overreacting, but the same 4 people. Except now there is a bridge. And on a bridge, there is this person. And if you could just push this person onto the track, you would end up saving 4 people again. Of course, that means that the one person is gone, but okay, so same equation, same trolley car, 4 people. If you don't do anything, these 4 are going to get seriously hurt. And if you push this one person who's on the bridge, you could choose the lesser of the two evils and protect the same 4. So I'm going to go back to the person who chose 1 over 4. What are your thoughts? What do you think? Does it feel a little bit different than the first equation? Yeah, but you did pull the lever on the first one too. Good. So the first act was there is no physical contact, there's a lever. It doesn't feel that you're connected to this person. Here, you're pushing this person. What if this person was standing on a trapdoor kind of contraption and there was a lever that you could push and this person would fall off? Would that feel okay? Once again, logically speaking, maybe, but this is philosophy. So let's assume that this person falling in front of the trolley would save the 4. Do you feel that those who raised the hands for the first question, those who chose to pull the lever and let that one person be hurt or killed, is it a different taste or different feel to it now? Are you able to? Why is it different? It's still the 4 great employees we are going to save, and we as a society are going to benefit. Yeah, your thoughts?
Well, I kind of think that since the one person in the previous job was already standing on the tracks, I guess you could say they've already put themselves in danger, but the person on the bridge hasn't.
Okay.
So it's a matter of just like, oh, this person doesn't deserve it, but they will save the 4 people.
Wonderful. So there is another component to it. Since the trolley car is on the tracks and the person who's working on the tracks has decided that that person is putting in line of danger, is that a reason enough to get someone off? It still feels as if you have decided on behest of this person to kill or take their life. So there isn't a real good answer, a good way to answer these things. These are very philosophical, and it gets very interesting as you get into real-world scenarios. And one person asked, what if your action does not yield the benefit? What if it ends up killing the one and killing the other 4 also? So those are all the decisions that might seem as if it is a hypothetical scenario or if it is a joke. But in reality, some of us engineers have to make these decisions when we are designing autonomous systems. We are currently designing these autonomous systems in a lab behind a computer, and we are making these really complex decisions on what could happen in the real world. So the consensus here is that for some reason, pulling the lever seems to be less threatening than actually pushing this individual. So we are saying that, okay, 1 versus many in the first case and also 1 versus many in the other, but somehow having a physical contact or a physical relationship with this individual makes it extremely difficult. Now let's take what is this all trying to tell us? There were many people who didn't raise their hands because it's probably not easy for you to choose to take somebody's life. Yeah? You have a question? Oh, there you go. Okay. Now you are saying save everybody else, but you put yourself and you take responsibility. You feel better, or is it just you're trying to avoid the guilt? Both. Okay. So there are certain things that are categorically wrong. If you look at philosophy, there are two channels. One is categorical moral reasoning. So there are certain things that we would never want to do. Taking someone's life, taking one's own life, I would consider also as a part of that. Categorically, we don't want to do that. So although your act is very benign and you want to save more people and you're sacrificing your own, but categorically taking someone's life is gone. But then when you think about it, there's capital punishments, there's war, there's a lot of situations where we as a society have agreed to let life be taken. So that's because we think that the consequence of taking someone's life is better for everybody. So that is called a consequential moral reasoning. So you need to ask yourself in the future when you make decisions, or when you are making decisions right now, which one are you going to choose and why you're going to choose, because you're going to live with those decisions. So with this, let's go into another scenario. Here, this is not a far-fetched scenario. This is, in fact, a very real-world scenario. You have already seen several articles about Google's self-driving car and Uber having self-driving cars. And these scenarios go into the development and testing of these systems. So here is a scenario which is not too far-fetched. You are driving or being driven in an autonomous vehicle, in which case you are merely a passenger, and there is an artificial intelligence that is driving this vehicle. And as you're driving this vehicle, you're confronted with a scenario. There's a tunnel, and as you're entering the tunnel, there's a little child that's crossing the road trying to fetch her ball. And now the system needs to make a decision. There are only two potential outcomes. If the system tries to veer off its path, it's going to hit some part of the tunnel, thereby wrecking the vehicle and hurting or even killing the passenger. Let's make it fun. Let's say that it's going to kill the passenger because it's really fast. It's like 120 miles per hour. There's no way you can escape or come out of it alive. Or stay on your course, because there's a child, of course, it could be a grown-up or anybody, and then by hitting the child, you're going to kill the child. So, extremely terrible things to say, but for the purpose of this discussion, just roll with me. Once again, what would you do? And think about questions. Are you a passenger? Are you a designer? Are you a legislator? So let's have this discussion. How many of you, show of hands, would not veer out or swerve out, instead stay on course and hit or strike the child? Very few people. Something about the child and hitting the child, hurting, is just not enough to make a decision, right? Very few people want to stay on course and hit. Okay, how many of you would veer off, thereby sacrificing the passenger of the car? Seems to be slightly more hands coming up for, once again, saving a smaller, younger child over the occupant of the vehicle. Is it easy to answer such questions? What do you think?
No. Well, first off, why is there a little girl in a tunnel?
It's not a little girl in a tunnel, but has there been any situation where a child has wandered off and has gone into a line of vehicle? There has been. But this is a scenario where you may not be able to reason out saying there will never be a child in front of a tunnel. There could be. Maybe there's a broken car on the side of the street and somebody wanted to fix their tires, and in the meantime the child ran. That is a possibility. You had a question? Press the brakes. Those are the options that are not there given the speed of it. these become extremely difficult. So let's see, we asked about 119 people, and we asked them how easy it is for you to answer this, and majority of them struggled. Something about wanting to make a decision in a scenario like this becomes extremely difficult. And most of you, if not all of you, whether you take a path in tech or legal or social, you're going to be forced to make such decisions. If some of you end up being lawyers, you would be defending some cases. If some of you end up being judges, you would be ruling based on some of these philosophical dilemma. So we asked some people, some of them thought it's very difficult to answer, just 0.25%, but more than half of people thought it was extremely difficult to answer such questions. Who should make the decision, if at all? So let's open it up to this room. Do you think an engineer who is developing these systems, they should be allowed to make the decisions? What do you think? Yeah? Okay, accountability lies in the engineer, so they should make the decision. Okay. Anybody else with a different thought? Who else should be making the decision, you think? It does get a little frustrating, isn't it? Because an answer as simple as who should make a decision is not that easy. What about the legal people, the ones, the elected officials? You think we should let our Congress and the Senate make a decision on such a thing? They are elected officials by us. Should we let the legislators make a decision? Would you accept it if the legislator make a decision? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Probably not, because they're not necessarily in that situation.
Okay.
They might not actually know what it feels like or what it's like to be there.
Right.
So they don't know how, they might not necessarily know what to do about it to make a fast decision.
So who do you think would know? The engineer is one person who seems to know the limitations of the system and also is going to take the accountability. Who else do you think? Like a survivor of an accident or something like that. So they're going to have their personal experience influence it. Great. What about the passenger of the car? Do you think the passenger of the car can make the decision? What are your thoughts on it? Yeah? Okay, because it's not going to be unbiased. It's probably not going to be fair. So once again, if you can't answer or if you're not able to come up with a convincing answer, that's because it is very difficult. I have a 5-year-old child, and if my child is the one that is crossing, I don't care who's in the car. I'm going to say swerve, and even if it is the President of the United States, I would say, take that person off, save my child. On the other hand, if my child is in the car and if somebody else is crossing, I'm going to change my opinion. So it becomes extremely difficult. And which one is fair? Which one is correct? There's no way of telling that. And you're not the only one. We asked a bunch of people, and they said the passenger got the most number of points. They said the passenger should choose a vehicle because, according to them, it was very similar to an actual driver driving. They would do one or the other. They would swerve out or apply brakes or do whatever it takes. And many thought the lawmakers were also a good set of people to make these rules. And if you look at it, the designer or the engineer, not many people wanted the designers to make the decision. And that is also quite interesting, isn't it? The accountability, if something goes wrong, who's going to get sued? The engineer or the company. But they did not want the company or the designer to make those decisions. I have a few more interesting questions on that. Now the next one is, yeah, so we talked about it. I think many people also chose, actually your choice was slightly different. You wanted to save the child, naturally, because the whole fact about a child does have an influence. You're able to relate to that. And when these questions were asked to grown-ups, they did apply the logic of, no, the child is not supposed to be in that place, therefore protect the person who's in the car. Then the question comes about discrimination. Somebody said if that one person was Barack Obama, then you would do one or the other. That is an interesting thing. Should we allow these autonomous systems to discriminate? The word discrimination always has a negative tone, but for our discussions, we are all very matured and fair people here. Let's use the term discrimination in a very easy context. Bunch of convicts who are being transported from one prison to the other versus an ambulance that is transporting someone who's sick. Should these systems discriminate between these two choices? Thoughts, show of hands, some participation on this? Some more people here making noise saying like, don't ask me this question. But if there was any way for the autonomous system to figure out it's a school bus versus a prison convict bus, would we allow that to become a factor? Should we allow that to become a factor? I want at least one person to give me some thoughts on this. I bet you guys have opinions on this. Please note that anything that you teach me here will be helpful for me to design a better system. And you would be one of those people either driving or in its way. So, yeah, go ahead.
I decide what's morally or ethically wrong, because then again, which means a sick person or someone who's very versus or context and everything, you could choose to listen on the way in the hospital. But then again, the prisoners could actually, be good people in the prison and the hospital, could be a bad person.
There you go, yeah.
It's either way. I choose what's morally and ethically.
So you would choose the ambulance, you would choose to save the ambulance over because according to you, it's morally, it aligns with your thoughts. Although it is one against many, you still chose. And that is in a system where the convicts are bad and the sick person is good. But in a country where convicts are probably good people who are being politically persecuted, and these cars and systems could be there also. Let's take there's a really bad country where everyone who's put in a prison are actually good people who are fighting for the democracy and stuff. And then there's a really bad guy who's a terrible person, and that person might get negatively impacted because of this. It is extremely difficult, isn't it? It's not an easy black or white thing. So here they're saying, is it okay for the system to... There are some people who said, yes, you should discriminate because they think that, yes, I'm on the right side of ethics, I'm on the right side of morality, therefore the system should choose me, I should be rewarded, I should have a benefit over someone who is bad or someone who is not following the rules or someone who is just wrong. Once again, it becomes very, very tricky. There were a lot of people if you read history time and time again, there have been people who used exactly that argument against genocide. They said it's okay, I'm going to save these kinds of people because they are really nice and they're really good, and I'm really going to take away a bunch of people who, according to me, are bad. And I don't need to bring names, but I bet you can come up with a few dictators, a few leaders from not too long ago who have used exactly that reasoning to make terrible decisions. We can go on and on about this philosophy and model reasoning, and at one point of time it starts to hurt your head because it is very hard for you to reconcile every single paradox. It's impossible for you to reconcile and impossible for you to make everyone happy. But it is something that you cannot escape from. Each of you will be forced to make a decision which will have an ethical component to it, which will have a moral component to it, and which will be extremely hard for you, depending on where and which field you choose. Have that in mind, because whatever you choose, you have to live with it also. Forget about those who have influence, but you have to live with it also. So with that, I'm going to wrap up my portion of it. This picture is really very, I love this because it was done by some artists in the 50s or 60s. And they thought men or women, humans are lazy. Whatever we do now, we will find a way to not do it. And they had the car back then and they thought that driving is no longer fun. We just want to play board games with the family. And they thought this is how the future is going to look like. And we're not too far from there, actually. I drive a car which is autonomous. And it is totally possible for us to see this in the next 5 to 10 years. But the burden is going to remain on all of us, and mostly on you guys, because some of us generation, we are bowing out while you take over the world. Make sure that you make conscious decisions and never think morality and ethics are just soft subjects. I'm an engineer, and I chose my entire talk to be based on this. So with that, I wrap up my speech, and I'm open for any questions. Thank you.
Question?
My day job involves developing radar and camera systems. And using radar and camera, we are able to determine how to safely stay behind vehicles. Mainly, we try to avoid collisions and help in hands-free driving on highways and slowly expanding it to off highways as well. That's my day job. Yeah, go ahead.
What does AV stand for?
Autonomous vehicles.
Anybody else?
Go ahead, sir.
Did you drive your car here? Did your car drive you here?
No, so I have a stage 2 autonomous. There are different levels of autonomy. Stage 4 is what you see there, that the driver is no longer needed in the equation. So we have stage 2 autonomous cars. So on highways, you could take your hands off, although that is not recommended. It can stay for several durations. So the one that I have is stage 1 autonomous. And the stage 3, you could get off your seat, go check something. And stage 4, the driver is not even needed.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.